Captain Hannah Park stood on the bridge of the TSS Indomitable, running her fingers along the worn control panel. After 30 years of service, the aging warship was scheduled for decommissioning next week. The military brass had deemed fusion reactor technology obsolete in an era of quantum field generators. "Captain, Fleet Command has transmitted our final orders," announced Lieutenant Da Kim, his voice carrying a hint of resignation. Hannah nodded. One last escort mission to the shipbreaking yards at Ta City. The ship's AI, ODIN, spoke through the bridge speakers. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected an approaching fleet. Signatures match Talon Empire vessels. 13 ships, heavily armed." Hannah's expression hardened. The Talons had been encroaching on human space for months. "So much for a quiet retirement," she muttered. Hannah walked to the main view screen, studying the distant enemy fleet. They were still hours away, but closing fast. The Indomitable had seen better days. Patches of mismatched hull plating from previous battles, outdated weapon systems, and a fusion reactor that engineers now considered primitive technology. ODIN sent an alert to Fleet Command. "Request instructions," Hannah ordered, though she already knew what the response would be. The nearest reinforcements were 3 days away. "Message sent, Captain. Response indicates we should avoid engagement and proceed to Ta City as planned. They suggest our outdated systems would be ineffective against Talon technology." Lieutenant Kim clenched his jaw. "They're writing us off." Hannah studied the tactical display. The Talons were on an intercept course. There would be no avoiding them. "ODIN, recall all shore personnel. Battle stations in 1 hour." "Captain." Kim looked surprised. "Fleet Command advised." "I heard them, Lieutenant. But those Talon ships aren't here for a friendly chat. We need to be ready." The ship came alive with activity as off-duty crew members returned from their last shore leave. Many had already packed personal belongings, expecting the decommissioning ceremony next week. Now they rushed to their stations, confusion and worry evident on their faces. Chief Engineer Song Ji appeared on the bridge, his uniform hastily donned. "Captain, what's this about battle stations? The fusion reactor isn't calibrated for combat operations. We were preparing for shutdown procedures." "Plans have changed, Chief. Talon fleet approaching. 13 ships." Ji's eyes widened. 13. Against our one obsolete cruiser. That's not a battle. That's suicide. "Perhaps," Hannah said, studying the tactical display. "But we're still a Terran Alliance warship, and I'm not surrendering without a fight." Ji hesitated, then nodded. "I'll get the reactor ready. We might have a few tricks left in this old ship." As Ji left, Weapons Officer Min appeared at her station. "Ma'am, the pulse cannons haven't been fired in over 2 years. Last combat exercise showed significant targeting drift." "Then fix it, Min. We need everything working." "With respect, Captain, even at peak performance, our weapons are generations behind Talon technology. Their shields are designed to withstand quantum-based attacks. Our fusion weapons are antiquated." Hannah managed a tight smile. Sometimes old technology has advantages people forget. The bridge crew worked with purpose, but Hannah could sense their doubt. The Indomitable was scheduled for the scrapyard for good reason. Military technology had advanced rapidly in recent years, and fusion-based systems were considered museum pieces. Hannah retreated to her ready room and activated her personal terminal. "ODIN, show me the Indomitable's original specifications. Not the current ones, the classified ones from when she was first commissioned." "Accessing restricted archives, Captain," the AI replied. "Authorization required." "Park, Hannah." "Captain." "Authorization Delta 79 Echo." Files began appearing on her screen. Weapon systems that weren't on any current manifest, engine capabilities that had been officially downgraded, and experimental technology that had been installed but later classified. Hannah smiled. "Just as I thought." "ODIN, how much of this original equipment is still functional?" "Unknown, Captain. These systems have been officially deactivated, but not removed. Correct. Physical removal was deemed unnecessary as software locks were implemented. Hannah's smile widened. And who has override authority for those software locks? The ship's captain, with proper authorization codes. Perfect. Hannah returned to the bridge with renewed purpose. The crew looked to her expectantly. Lieutenant Kim, send a message to Fleet Command. Inform them that we have detected the Talon fleet and are following orders to avoid engagement while proceeding to Ta City. Kim looked confused. But we just went to battle stations. Send the message, Lieutenant. Yes, Captain. Hannah turned to face her bridge crew. What I'm about to tell you is classified. 30 years ago, when the Indomitable was commissioned, she wasn't just a standard cruiser. She was a testbed for experimental technology. Most of those systems were later deemed too unstable or power-hungry for mass production. The military moved on to newer approaches. She activated the main display, showing schematics that made several crew members gasp. Those systems were never removed, just locked down and classified. As captain, I have the authority to reactivate them. Chief G, who had returned to the bridge, stared at the display. The Phantom Drive. I thought that was just a rumor. It's real, and it's still installed, Hannah confirmed, along with reactive armor plating and pulse cannons that can be modified to fire at frequencies Talon shields aren't calibrated to block. Min studied the weapons data. These specifications, they're incredible. Why would they abandon this technology? Too unstable, too dangerous. The Phantom Drive had a habit of burning out fusion cores. The reactive armor sometimes reacted too strongly and damaged the ship itself. The military decided quantum technology was safer and more reliable, and we're going to use these unstable systems against 13 Talon warships. Kim asked, his voice a mixture of fear and excitement. We are, because they'll never expect it. Hannah pointed to the approaching fleet on the tactical display. The Talons have studied our current technology. They've designed their ships to counter quantum weapons and defenses, but they've never faced these experimental systems because they were classified and abandoned before the Talons encountered humanity. The bridge was silent as the implications sank in. We have 4 hours before they intercept us, Hannah continued. Chief G, I need the fusion reactor prepared for maximum output. Officer Min, recalibrate the pulse cannons to these specifications. ODN, begin systematic removal of software locks on all experimental systems. Captain, ODN interrupted. I should inform you that activating these systems carries significant risk to the ship and crew. Noted, Hannah replied. And still better than certain destruction by the Talon fleet. The crew began working with renewed energy. The ship hummed with power as long-dormant systems came online. Captain, Kim said quietly, if these systems are so powerful, why didn't Fleet Command suggest using them? Because officially, they don't exist anymore. And unofficially, no one remembers what this old ship can really do. Hannah looked at the approaching Talon fleet on the display. They thought they were hunting an obsolete vessel limping to the scrapyard. They were about to learn a very important lesson about underestimating their prey. So much for a quiet retirement, she repeated, but this time with a smile. This is Captain Hannah Park of the Terran Alliance vessel Indomitable. We are on a peaceful transit mission. Please state your intentions. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the sharp avian features of Commander Krell. His eyes narrowed as he surveyed the human bridge. A museum piece, he scoffed. Our scans show your vessel operates on primitive fusion technology. This sector now belongs to the Talon Empire. Retreat immediately or be destroyed. Lieutenant Kim whispered, Captain, they've scanned our systems but seem uninterested in our weapons array. Hannah maintained eye contact with Krell. We request safe passage through this sector. You have 1 hour to withdraw, Krell replied before cutting transmission. Hannah turned to her crew. They think we're harmless. Let's use that. The bridge fell silent as the view screen went dark. 13 Talon warships against their single aging cruiser. The odds were not in their favor, but Captain Park had never been one to accept defeat without a fight. ODIN. Analyze their scan patterns, Hannah ordered. What exactly did they look at? And more importantly, what did they miss? The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. Their scans focused primarily on our power signature, propulsion systems, and hull composition. They performed only a cursory examination of our weapon systems, likely dismissing them as outdated and non-threatening. Hannah nodded, just as I expected. Arrogance has always been the Talon's weakness. She turned to Lieutenant Kim. Open a secure channel to engineering. Chief G's face appeared on a small screen. Captain, I've been monitoring their scan patterns. They completely overlook the experimental systems we're bringing online. Good. How long until the Phantom Drive is operational? 40 minutes, maybe less. The pulse cannons will take about 30. The reactive armor is already at 60% capacity. Hannah smiled. Excellent work, Chief. Keep going. Weapons Officer Min approached with a tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing the Talon fleet formation. Their flagship is heavily protected in the center, but there's a vulnerability in their starboard flank. If we could appear suddenly in this position, she pointed to a spot on the tactical display, we might be able to cause significant damage before they can reorient their defenses. Plot the jump coordinates. We'll only get one chance at surprise. The bridge crew worked with focused intensity. They had trained for years on this ship, but never with these experimental systems activated. The Indomitable hummed with energy as long-dormant systems came back to life. Lieutenant Kim monitored communications. Captain, we're receiving transmissions between Talon vessels. They're discussing the most efficient way to salvage our ship after destroying it. They plan to use our fusion reactor for research purposes. They're already dividing the spoils, Hannah muttered. Typical Talon overconfidence. Captain, ODIN interrupted. Talon vessels are adjusting their formation. They appear to be preparing for an attack run, despite their 1-hour ultimatum. Current time elapsed, 17 minutes. They never intended to give us an hour, Hannah said grimly. They just wanted us to feel helpless while they got into position. She made a quick decision. Chief G, we need the Phantom Drive now. It's only at 70% capacity, Captain. A jump could be unstable. We don't have a choice. They're moving to attack. The tactical display showed the Talon ships spreading into an attack formation, their weapons powering up. All hands, secure for emergency maneuver, Hannah announced shipwide. Prepare for Phantom Jump in 60 seconds. The crew quickly secured loose equipment and braced themselves. The Phantom Drive was notoriously violent during activation. Incoming transmission from the Talon flagship, Kim reported. Put it through, Hannah ordered. Commander Krell appeared on screen again, his expression smug. Captain Park, I've decided that giving you an hour was too generous. Your outdated vessel isn't worth the wait. Commander Krell, Hannah replied calmly. I must inform you that you've made a serious error in judgment. Krell's feathered crest rose in amusement. And what error would that be, human? You assume that because our technology is old, it is weak. Age doesn't always mean obsolescence. Sometimes it means experience. Krell laughed. Your bravado is admirable but misplaced. Prepare to. Phantom Drive ready, Captain. Chief G called out. Cut transmission, Hannah ordered. Activate Phantom Drive now. The view screen went dark as Krell was cut off mid-sentence. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily, and a deep vibration ran through the ship. The stars on the view screen blurred and shifted. Braced for exit, Hannah called out, gripping her command chair tightly. The ship shuddered violently as it tore back into normal space. Several control panels sparked, and warning alarms blared. Status report, Hannah demanded once the shaking stopped. ODIN responded first. Phantom jump successful. Position, starboard flank of Talon fleet, 700 meters from nearest vessel. All Talon ships showing signs of confusion. Their sensors are attempting to locate us. They can see us visually, but their automated targeting systems rely on quantum signatures, Min explained. We're not registering properly on their combat systems. Hannah didn't waste the opportunity. Target the nearest 3 vessels with pulse cannons. Fire when ready. Min's fingers flew across her console. Targeting. Firing. The ancient pulse cannons roared to life, sending bursts of fusion-enhanced energy toward the Talon ships. The blast struck their targets before the aliens could raise their shields. Direct hits on all targets, Min reported excitedly. 2 vessels showing critical damage to propulsion and weapons systems. The third has lost shield capability. On the view screen, they could see the damaged Talon ships listing to one side, emergency lights flashing across their hulls. They're scrambling to respond, Kim reported. Fleet-wide communications indicate confusion and... He paused, listening to his earpiece. Captain, they think we're using some kind of new cloaking technology. They don't understand how we jumped position. Good, Hannah replied. Let's keep them confused. Chief G, how soon can we jump again? The drive needs 15 minutes to recharge, Captain. That jump was rough on the fusion core. We don't have 15 minutes, Hannah said as the remaining Talon ships began to turn toward their position. We need to move now. Conventional engines, full power. Take us underneath their formation. The helmsman responded immediately, and the indomitable dove beneath the Talon fleet. Several enemy ships opened fire, but their targeting was still off, most shots missing widely. Reactive armor at 80%, ODIN reported. Minor damage to outer hull plating, sections 7 through 12. A massive blast rocked the ship as one of the Talon vessels scored a direct hit. Armor holding, ODIN updated, but effectiveness down to 65%. Return fire, all operational weapons, Hannah ordered. The Indomitable's conventional weapons might have been outdated, but they were still deadly. Several more Talon ships took damage as the old cruiser weaved through their formation. Captain, Kim called out, incoming transmission from Commander Krell. On screen, Hannah ordered, straightening in her chair. Krell's face appeared, his earlier smugness replaced with rage and confusion. What trickery is this? Your vessel was registered as an obsolete model. As I tried to tell you, Commander, Hannah replied calmly despite the ship shaking from another impact. Age doesn't mean what you think it means. The Indomitable has a few tricks left. You will not survive this encounter, Krell hissed. All vessels, concentrate fire on. End transmission, Hannah ordered. They're trying to trace our communications. Min, target their flagship's communications array. Fire when ready. Another volley of pulse cannon fire struck the Talon flagship, disabling its main communications dish. Chief G, Hannah called over the ship's intercom. We need that phantom drive back online now. Working on it, Captain. The fusion reactor is showing strain from the last jump. 5 Talon ships had now formed a tight attack formation, closing in on the Indomitable from multiple angles. They're adapting to our presence, Min warned, beginning to compensate for our signal anomalies. Hannah studied the tactical display. The element of surprise was wearing off, and the Talon's superior numbers would soon overwhelm them. But they had already damaged or disabled 4 enemy ships. The odds were improving. Captain, Chief G's voice came over the comm. Phantom drive at minimal operational capacity. 1 more jump possible, but I can't guarantee where we'll end up. Hannah made her decision. All hands, prepare for emergency jump. Target. Directly behind Talon flagship. It was their riskiest move yet, but also potentially their most devastating. If they could take out Krell's flagship, the rest of the fleet might retreat. Phantom drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched violently as it disappeared from normal space, leaving the Talon fleet firing at empty space. The bridge crew held their breath as the universe blurred around them. ODN, initiate protocol Sleeping Dragon, Hannah commanded. Protocol authorized. The AI responded. Activating dormant systems. Engineer Taz Sung appeared on the bridge communications screen, face smudged with grease. Captain, I've reconfigured the fusion reactor for the overclock sequence. It won't last long, but it'll give us triple output when needed. Our advantage isn't in having the newest technology, Hannah told her skeleton crew of 12. It's that this old ship has tricks the new ones don't. She turned to weapons officer Jun Lee. Are the pulse cannons ready? Jun nodded. Yes, Captain. The Talons have optimized their shields against quantum weapons. They won't be expecting our outdated fusion-based weaponry. The hour was almost up. The Talon fleet moved into attack formation. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with renewed energy as dormant systems awakened. Displays that had been dark for years lit up with data streams. The deck plates vibrated beneath their feet as the fusion reactor spooled up to power levels it hadn't reached in over a decade. Captain Hannah stood tall in the center of the bridge, watching as her small crew worked with focused intensity. Only 12 people remained on board what should have been a ship with a crew of 200. Most had already been reassigned in preparation for decommissioning. But these 12 were the best, the ones who truly understood what the old warship could do. Ta, what's the status on the reactor? Hannah asked over the comm. The engineer wiped sweat from his brow. It's running hot, Captain. These old systems weren't meant to be pushed this hard. But I've bypassed the safety limiters. We got about 30 minutes at triple output before things get critical. That will have to be enough, Hannah replied. Odin, how are the dormant systems responding? The AI's voice seemed to have gained a new resonance as Protocol Sleeping Dragon activated subroutines that had been hidden for years. All systems responding within acceptable parameters, Captain. Ghost shield generators at 87% capacity. Stealth plating activated. Adaptive frequency jammers online. Lieutenant Kim looked up from his console with wide eyes. Captain, these systems, they're not in any official record I've ever seen. They wouldn't be, Hannah said. 30 years ago, when the Indomitable was first commissioned, she was more than just a warship. She was a testbed for experimental technology that was too unstable or power-hungry for mass production. She pointed to a newly activated display showing the ship's true capabilities. The military abandoned these designs when quantum tech proved more reliable, but they never removed the systems, just locked them away where they wouldn't cause trouble. Jun whistled as he reviewed the weapons data. These pulse cannons, their output is incredible. And you're right, they operate on completely different frequencies than modern shields are designed to block. The Talons have optimized their defenses against the quantum disruptors our newer ships use, Hannah explained. Their shields analyze incoming energy signatures and adapt, but they won't be prepared for weapons that predate their entire defensive strategy. The tactical display showed the Talon fleet spreading into an attack formation. 13 ships against their one, forming a perfect encirclement. They were still treating the Indomitable as an easy target. 5 minutes until they're in optimal firing position, Kim reported. Hannah nodded. Perfect. Let them get close. ODN, begin passive scan of all Talon vessels. I want structural weaknesses, blind spots, anything we can exploit. Scan in progress, the AI confirmed. I am detecting unusual energy fluctuations in their shield generators. Analysis suggests their systems are specifically calibrated to counter quantum-based attacks, with minimal protection against other energy types. Just as we suspected, Hannah said with a tight smile. Ta, how's that reactor holding up? Ready when you are, Captain. I've got the emergency coolant systems standing by. Hannah turned to the helmsman, ensign you. Han, I need you to plot an approach vector that brings us through the weakest point in their formation. When I give the order, hit full thrust. I want to be past their front line before they realize what's happening. Plotting now, Captain, Han replied, fingers dancing across his controls. The bridge fell silent as everyone prepared for what was coming. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they had the element of surprise. The Talons thought they were facing an obsolete vessel limping to the scrapyard. They had no idea what the Indomitable was truly capable of. 2 minutes, Kim announced softly. Hannah keyed the shipwide comm. All hands, this is the captain. Secure for combat maneuvers. What we're about to do will push this old ship to her limits. The Talons think we're obsolete. Let's show them how wrong they are. She turned to June. Target their lead vessel. Don't fire until I give the command. Targeted and locked, June confirmed. ODN. Activate Ghost Shield. Full coverage. Ghost Shield activated. The AI responded. Warning. Significant power drain detected. Reactor temperature increasing. The Indomitable seemed to shimmer slightly as the experimental shielding came online. Unlike conventional shields that created a visible energy barrier, the Ghost Shield bent light and other forms of energy around the ship, making it harder to target precisely. 1 minute, Kim reported. Talons are charging weapons. Let them fire first, Hannah ordered. I want to see what they're bringing to the fight. The crew watched tensely as the Talon fleet continued their approach. The lead vessel, a sleek warship twice the size of the Indomitable, moved into firing position. Incoming, Kim called out. Energy signatures suggest quantum disruptors and plasma lances. The space around the Indomitable lit up as Talon weapons fire streaked toward them. But instead of hitting directly, the shots seemed to curve and distort around the ship's hull, most missing entirely. Ghost Shield performing even better than expected, ODN reported. Talon targeting systems are unable to compensate for the distortion field. Hannah grinned. Now, Han. Full thrust. Take us through their formation. The Indomitable lurched forward, fusion engines roaring to life with power they hadn't generated in years. The old ship moved with surprising speed, hurtling toward the gap between two Talon vessels. June, fire at will. Target their propulsion systems first. The pulse cannons activated, sending brilliant blue-white energy beams slicing through space. They struck the first Talon ship directly on its engine section. Instead of being absorbed or deflected by shields, the energy tore through them, as if they weren't there. Direct hit, June shouted. Their port engines are offline. Their shields didn't even slow our weapons down. Kim said in amazement. They really weren't prepared for this technology. The Indomitable shot through the gap in the Talon formation, pulse cannons firing continuously now. 3 enemy ships took heavy damage before the others could react and begin turning to pursue. Structural integrity at 92%, ODN reported. Minor damage to outer hull plating from debris impact. Ghost Shield performance degrading due to power requirements. Ta, how's the reactor? Hannah asked. Hot, Captain. Very hot. We've got maybe 15 minutes left at this output level before we risk a breach. That should be enough, Hannah replied. ODN, activate the adaptive frequency jammers. Target their communications network. Jammers activated. Talon communications showing significant disruption. On the tactical display, the Talon fleet's movements became less coordinated as ships lost contact with each other and their flagship. What had been a disciplined attack formation was devolving into isolated vessels trying to target the Indomitable individually. They're confused, Kim reported. Intercepted communications indicate they're trying to understand how our obsolete weapons are penetrating their shields. Hannah nodded. Let's add to their confusion. Han, evasive pattern delta. Keep us moving. June, continue targeting propulsion and weapons systems. The old warship danced through space with surprising agility, weaving between Talon vessels and firing precisely at vulnerable points. 2 more enemy ships lost engine power, left drifting and unable to maneuver. Captain, I'm detecting a power surge from the Talon flagship, Kim warned. They appear to be charging some kind of energy weapon we haven't seen before. ODN, analysis, Hannah demanded. Unknown weapon type. Energy signature suggests a quantum-based area effect weapon. Recommend immediate evasive action. Han, get us clear, Hannah ordered. The helmsman tried to turn the ship, but a bright flash erupted from the Talon flagship. A wave of energy expanded outward, catching the Indomitable before it could escape. The ship shuddered violently. Consoles sparked and several systems went offline temporarily. Damage report, Hannah called out, picking herself up from the deck where the impact had thrown her. Ghost shield down, Odin reported. Reactor containment holding but stressed. Multiple systems reporting failures. Tay's voice came over the comm, punctuated by the sound of alarms in the background. Captain, that hit did something to the power distribution network. The reactor's becoming unstable. Can you stabilize it? I'm trying, but we can't take another hit like that. Hannah looked at the tactical display. 5 Talon ships were damaged or disabled, but 8 remained, including the flagship with its powerful new weapon. They're regrouping, Kim warned, preparing for another attack run. Captain Hannah Park stood silent for a moment, considering their options. Then a slow smile spread across her face. Odin, initiate Protocol Phoenix. The AI actually paused before responding. Captain, Protocol Phoenix has never been field tested. Simulation results were inconclusive. That's because no one ever had the courage to try it. Hannah replied. We're out of options. Do it. Initiating Protocol Phoenix, Odin confirmed. May I suggest all personnel brace for potential system overload? Hannah keyed the shipwide comm. All hands, secure for emergency maneuver. This is going to get rough. Activate Ghost Drive, Hannah ordered. The Indomitable shimmered and vanished from sensors. The experimental technology had been deemed too unstable for mass production, but this old ship had kept it. When they reappeared, they were behind the Talon formation. Fire. The fusion pulse cannons blazed to life, cutting through the first Talon cruiser's shields like they weren't there. Their shields are calibrated for quantum weapons, June called out. Our primitive weapons are bypassing them completely. ODN's tactical display identified structural weaknesses in the Talon vessels that newer AIs might have missed. One by one, the technologically superior ships began falling to the obsolete warship. The bridge rocked with impacts as return fire found its mark. Reactor at critical, Tay reported. One more push is all we've got. The Indomitable trembled as its ancient systems trained under the pressure. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. The Ghost Drive had pushed their fusion reactor to its absolute limit. Captain Hannah gripped her command chair as another explosion rocked the ship. Status report, she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Kim checked his readings. 3 Talon cruisers destroyed, 4 heavily damaged, 6 still operational, including their flagship. They're regrouping, June warned, watching the tactical display. Changing formation to protect their flagship. Hannah studied the display intently. The element of surprise had worked beautifully. The Talons had never expected an obsolete human vessel to possess such devastating capabilities. Their formation was scattered, their coordinated attack broken, but they still outnumbered the Indomitable, and the old ship was running out of tricks. ODN, analyze remaining Talon vessels. Any weaknesses we can exploit. The AI's voice remained calm despite the flashing warning indicators on its interface. Their flagship has sustained damage to its port shield generator. There is a vulnerability that could be exploited with a direct hit from our main cannon. Can we manage one more weapons burst? The engineer's face on the communication screen was streaked with sweat and engine grease. He was working frantically in the reactor room, manually rerouting power conduits that were never designed to handle the energy they were now carrying. Maybe one, Captain. The containment field is already showing microfractures. If we push it any harder, we risk a complete reactor breach. Hannah nodded grimly. One shot is all we need. June, target the Talon flagship's port shield generator. Maximum power to the main cannon. Targeting now, June replied, his fingers flying across the weapons console. Target locked. Han, bring us about. I want a clear shot. The helmsman guided the damaged ship into position, avoiding the scattered fire from the remaining Talon vessels. The Indomitable groaned as its aging hull plates strained against the maneuvers. "Captain," Kim called out urgently, "I'm intercepting communications from the Talon flagship. They're calling for reinforcements. 2 more squadrons are responding. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. Hannah's expression hardened. "Then we finish this now. Ted, divert all remaining power to weapons. Life support, gravity, everything non-essential. We need everything for this shot." "Understood, Captain. Diverting now." The lights on the bridge dimmed as power was rerouted. The artificial gravity flickered, causing loose objects to momentarily float before settling back down. The temperature began to drop as life support systems powered down to minimal levels. "All power diverted," Ty confirmed. "Main cannon at 123% rated capacity. This is beyond anything this ship was ever designed to handle. ODIN, calculate firing solution. I want to hit that shield generator with everything we've got." "Calculating," the AI replied. "Firing solution complete. Warning. Reactor temperature approaching critical threshold. Recommend firing immediately." "June, on my mark," Hannah said, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Talon flagship was moving into a defensive position, surrounded by its remaining escorts. They had to time this perfectly. "Ready, Captain," June confirmed, his finger poised over the firing control. The bridge fell silent. The only sounds were the strained groaning of the hull and the warning alarms blinking across their consoles. Every crew member knew what was at stake. If this shot failed, they wouldn't get another chance. "Fire," Hannah commanded. The main cannon discharged with a power surge that momentarily shut down all other systems on the ship. The Indomitable went dark for 3 seconds as every bit of energy was channeled into the weapon. When the lights returned, the view screen showed a brilliant beam of energy streaking toward the Talon flagship. The shot hit precisely where ODIN had calculated. The already damaged shield generator exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations that spread across the flagship's hull. "Direct hit," June shouted. "Their main shield generator is completely destroyed." The bridge crew watched in amazement as the Talon flagship listed to one side, venting atmosphere and debris. Its weapon systems went dark as emergency protocols kicked in. "Their power grid is collapsing," ODIN reported. "Main engines offline. Weapon systems disabled." "The other vessels are breaking formation," Kim added. "They appear to be moving to protect their flagship." Hannah allowed herself a small smile before turning her attention back to their own situation. "Ta, reactor status." The engineer's voice was strained. "Critical, Captain. Containment field failing. We have maybe 5 minutes before a breach. Can we jump to safety?" "Ghost drive is offline." The power surge from the main cannon overloaded the control circuits. Hannah made a quick decision. "All hands, prepare to evacuate. Emergency Protocol Alpha 7. The crew looked at her in shock. Alpha 7 was the protocol for abandoning ship. "Captain," Kim began, "we can't just." "That's an order, Lieutenant," Hannah interrupted firmly. "ODN, prepare evacuation pods for launch. Set coordinates for the nearest Terran outpost." "Evacuation sequence initiated," ODN confirmed. "Pods will be ready in 2 minutes." Hannah stood from her command chair and faced her crew. "You all performed admirably today. We've shown the Talon Empire that humanity is not to be underestimated. Now we need to make sure that message reaches home." The crew moved to comply, but their reluctance was obvious. No one wanted to abandon the Indomitable after what they had just accomplished. "Ta," Hannah called over the comm. "Get to an evacuation pod immediately." "Working on it, Captain," the engineer replied. "Just need to stabilize the reactor enough to give everyone time to get clear. Don't take any unnecessary risks." "That's an order." As the bridge crew prepared to evacuate, an incoming transmission alert sounded. Kim checked his console, surprised. Captain, we're receiving the communication from the Talon flagship. Hannah hesitated, then nodded. Put it through. The view screen flickered to show Commander Krell. His command center was in disarray, with damaged equipment and injured crew visible behind him. The avian commander's proud bearing was diminished, but his eyes still burned with intensity. Captain Park, he said, his voice raspier than before. It seems I underestimated your obsolete vessel. A common mistake, Hannah replied evenly. One the Talon Empire won't make again, I trust. Krell's feathered crest flattened against his head in what might have been the Talon equivalent of a reluctant nod. Your ship is failing. Our sensors detect an imminent reactor breach. Yet you have disabled my flagship and scattered my fleet. Honor demands acknowledgement of worthy combat. We accept your acknowledgement, Commander. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have an evacuation to complete. The remaining vessels of my fleet will not interfere with your evacuation pods, Krell stated. This sector remains contested. The Talon Empire will return in greater numbers, and humanity will be ready, Hannah assured him before cutting the transmission. Well, that was unexpected, Kim remarked. Even Talons respect strength, Hannah replied. Odin, evacuation status. Pods prepared and ready for launch. All crew members except bridge personnel are already boarding. Good. Lieutenant Kim, Ensign Han, Officer Jun, proceed to your assigned pods immediately. The bridge officers hesitated. Captain, what about you? Kim asked. Hannah smiled. I'll be right behind you. I just need to make sure Odin's memory core is properly secured. The data from this encounter will be invaluable to Fleet Command. The officers nodded reluctantly and moved toward the exit. As they left, Hannah turned to the nearest console. Odin, reactor status. Containment field at 12% integrity. Breach imminent in approximately 4 minutes. Can you pilot this ship remotely? The AI paused before responding. Yes, Captain. But I must point out that evacuation protocol requires all personnel, including the captain, to abandon ship. I'm aware of the protocol, Hannah replied. But I have one last task for the Indomitable. Set a collision course for the disabled Talon flagship. Maximum thrust on my command. Captain, Odin responded. I must remind you that such an action would require manual navigation. The automated systems are too damaged for precision control of such a maneuver. Hannah nodded. I know. That's why I'm staying. Captain Park, I strongly advise. That will be all, Odin, Hannah interrupted firmly. She keyed the ship-wide comm one last time. All hands, this is the captain. Complete evacuation immediately. That's an order. She watched on the tactical display as the evacuation pods launched from the Indomitable, small dots of light moving away from the dying ship. The Talon vessels, true to Krell's word, made no move to intercept them. Hannah took her place at the helm, hands moving confidently over the manual controls. The Indomitable responded sluggishly, but it moved, turning toward the damaged Talon flagship. For an obsolete vessel, she murmured to the empty bridge, you still had a few tricks left. Let's show them one more. The Indomitable drifted in space, surrounded by the disabled remains of the Talon fleet. Only 3 enemy vessels had escaped. The communications channel crackled with Commander Krell's voice from an escape pod. Impossible. How did a relic defeat our advanced fleet? You judged a book by its cover, Hannah replied. Sometimes the old ways still have value. 6 months later, Captain Hannah Park stood on the same bridge, now restored and upgraded. Fleet Admiral Jin had halted the decommissioning program for older vessels after witnessing what happened. Admiral on deck, announced Lieutenant Kim. Admiral Jin stepped onto the bridge. Captain Park, your new orders. You're to lead a specialized fleet of these obsolete vessels and train their captains. Hannah smiled. Odin, plot a course to the training grounds. As the Indomitable moved away from space dock, Hannah watched 5 other refurbished vessels of the same class fall into formation alongside them. Sometimes, the oldest tools were exactly what you needed for the job. Captain Hannah Park stood by the viewport, watching the stars as medical personnel tended to her burns. The last-minute escape had been closer than she cared to admit. With only seconds remaining before the reactor breach, she had launched herself into the final evacuation pod, the automated systems barely getting her clear before the Indomitable collided with the Talon flagship. Both ships had been destroyed in the resulting explosion, but the sacrifice had not been in vain. The Talon incursion into human space had been halted. The 3 surviving enemy vessels had retreated, carrying word of their defeat back to the Empire. "Captain, you need to rest," the medical officer said, applying a regenerative patch to her shoulder. "I'll rest when my crew is safe," Hannah replied, wincing slightly as the medicine began to work. The collection of evacuation pods had been picked up by the TSS Vigilant, a patrol vessel that had responded to their distress signal. The rescue ship's captain had been astonished to find survivors from what Fleet Command had written off as a doomed obsolete vessel. Lieutenant Kim approached, his uniform torn and dirty, but his posture still perfect. "Captain, all crew accounted for. Minor injuries only." Hannah nodded, relief washing over her. "And Ta? Engineer Ta is fine. His last-minute modifications to the containment field gave us the extra time we needed to evacuate." "Good." Hannah turned back to the viewport. "Any word from Fleet Command?" "They're still processing our initial report," Kim replied. "I don't think they quite believe it yet. 13 Talon warships engaged, 10 destroyed or disabled, by a single obsolete cruiser scheduled for decommissioning." Hannah smiled faintly. "They'll believe it when they debrief Commander Krell and the other Talon survivors." Speaking of which, Kim added, "The Vigilant picked up Krell's escape pod as well. He's requested to speak with you." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "That's unexpected." "Very well. I'll see him once the medical officer clears me." An hour later, Hannah sat in the Vigilant's conference room. Across from her, Commander Krell looked diminished without his command. His feathered crest was singed, and one wing was bound in a medical brace. But his eyes still held the same fierce intelligence. "Captain Park," he began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into human speech. "I have served the Talon Empire for 30 years. In that time, I have never encountered a ship like yours." "The Indomitable was special," Hannah agreed. "Your vessel was listed in our intelligence files as obsolete, scheduled for destruction." Krell's head tilted in what might have been confusion. Yet it contained technology we had never seen before. "Sometimes," Hannah replied carefully, "the oldest trees have the deepest roots." Krell considered this. The Talon Empire has always based its military strategy on having the newest, most advanced technology. We discard anything that becomes outdated. Perhaps there is a flaw in this thinking. "Every approach has its strengths and weaknesses," Hannah said diplomatically. "The Empire will not forgive this defeat," Krell warned. "They will come again, with greater numbers. And humanity will be ready." 3 months passed. The incident with the Indomitable became known as the Battle of Ta City throughout Terran space. Captain Hannah Park and her crew were debriefed extensively by Fleet Intelligence, who were particularly interested in the experimental systems that had been hidden aboard the old warship. Hannah stood before the Admiralty Board, her dress uniform uncomfortable after months in medical recovery. "Captain Park," began Admiral Jin, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair, "your actions at Ta City were extraordinary. Fleet Command has reviewed all reports, including the data recovered from ODN's backup systems and Commander Krell's testimony." Hannah remained at attention, saying nothing. "The loss of the Indomitable was regrettable," Jin continued, "but the intelligence gained from your encounter with the Talon fleet has been invaluable. We had no idea they had advanced so far into our territory, nor that their technology had evolved in the directions it has." "Thank you, Admiral," Hannah replied. "My crew deserves all the credit. They performed beyond expectations." Jin nodded. "They have all received commendations, But we're here to discuss your next assignment. Hannah blinked in surprise. After losing a ship, even under heroic circumstances, captains usually faced a lengthy review period before receiving another command. Assignment: Admiral. The Talon Empire will return, Captain Park. We need to be ready. Jin activated a holographic display showing shipyard schematics. What you discovered aboard the Indomitable has caused us to reevaluate our entire fleet strategy. Those experimental systems were abandoned not because they didn't work, but because they were difficult to control and maintain. Newer isn't always better. The hologram showed a familiar silhouette, an Indomitable-class cruiser being refitted. The TSS Defiant, Jin explained. Same class as your old ship, but with modernized versions of those experimental systems. Ghost drive, pulse cannons, reactive armor, all of it updated with current safety standards. She's beautiful, Hannah said softly. She's yours, Jin replied. Along with a new mission. We're recommissioning 5 more vessels of the same class. You're to command this specialized squadron and develop tactical doctrines that leverage their unique capabilities. 6 months after the Battle of Ta City, Captain Hannah Park stood on the bridge of the TSS Defiant. The ship had the same bones as her old Indomitable, but with carefully integrated modern systems supporting the experimental technology that had proved so effective against the Talons. Most of her original crew had requested assignment to the new vessel. Lieutenant Kim stood at his familiar communication station. Engineer Ta had personally overseen the reactor installation. Weapons Officer Jun was running final checks on the upgraded pulse cannons. And ODN, restored from backup files, was once again integrated into the ship's systems. All systems operational, Captain, the AI reported. The Defiant is ready for duty. Thank you, ODN, Hannah replied. It's good to have you back. The bridge doors slid open, and a junior officer called out, Admiral on deck. Everyone snapped to attention as Admiral Jin entered the bridge. The Admiral took a moment to inspect the stations before approaching Hannah. Captain Park, I've come to deliver your orders personally. Jin handed over a data tablet. The other 5 ships in your squadron are ready. They await your command. Hannah reviewed the orders. A training mission to the outer colonies. Jin nodded. With Talon activity increasing along the border, we need these ships combat-ready as soon as possible. You'll develop tactics, train the crews, and establish a response protocol for future incursions. We won't let you down, Admiral. After Jin departed, Hannah addressed her crew. You all know what's at stake. The Talons thought us obsolete once. They won't make that mistake again. She turned to the helm. Ensign Han, take us out. 1/4 thrust until we clear space dock. The Defiant hummed with power as it moved away from the station. On the tactical display, Hannah watched as 5 other vessels of the same class fell into formation alongside them. Each had been pulled from the decommissioning list, each now refitted with the same combination of experimental and modern technology. ODN, open a channel to the squadron, Hannah ordered. Channel open, Captain. Hannah stood tall on her bridge. To all ships, this is Captain Park. Today we begin a new chapter in Terran naval history. Each of our vessels was once considered obsolete, destined for the scrapyard. But we know better. We know that true strength lies not in having the newest technology, but in understanding what you have and using it creatively. She looked out at the stars, thinking of Commander Krull's warning. The Talons would return, but this time, humanity would be ready. Set course for the training grounds, she ordered. We have work to do. As the small fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, Captain Hannah Park smiled. Sometimes, the oldest tools were exactly what you needed for the job.